Thanks so much for staying with us. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees is urging all Muslims and other faith-based organizations to support refugees struggling with COVID-19. Now, the 2020 Islamic Philanthropy Report highlights the impact of the Refugees Zakat Fund on vulnerable refugees across the world. Now, globally, close to 3 million people have tested positive for COVID-19 already. To elaborate on this and the impact on the sector involving refugees, I'm joined via Skype out of Dubai by Houssam Chahine, who is the UNHCR'S Chief of Private Sector Partnerships for the Middle East and North Africa region. Now, Houssam, thank you so much for joining us this morning, all the way out of Dubai. South Africa ranking 6th in terms of the biggest rises in the Charities Aid Foundation World Giving Index. This as the UNHCR has just released that philanthropy report, including the work being done by the Refugees Zakat Fund. What for you were the most significant findings of that report?
Good morning and Ramadan Kareem to all your listeners, and for those who are observing Ramadan as well. Thank you for having me this morning. The Refugee Zakat Fund is one part of our broader initiative on faith-based philanthropy all across the world and across faith. So what we are doing for the last couple of years, the report actually that we are launching focuses so far on Islamic philanthropy because we just launching this program that hopefully will become more and more global. In 2019 it was the first launch, and we saw a gradual growth through the years, actually, because we were testing this program where people can donate and support through zakat and other means of philanthropy refugees all across the world. As you know very well, refugees are one of the most vulnerable, or maybe the most vulnerable communities across the globe when it comes to health vulnerability and other actually risks around the world. So zakat and other ways of supporting refugees is very important now, especially while we're witnessing the COVID-19 situation, which is an emergency within an emergency. We saw this year a big growth actually rise for South Africa when it comes to generosity, when it comes to willingness and practically give to of course to internal causes, but as well as for internal and external causes. COVID-19 is a very critical situation today, because what we're doing is really trying to prepare our situations when it comes to situations in camps and outside camps, urban situations, to support refugees. And we've served in 2019 more than 1 million refugees, men and women and children across the globe, and maybe in 8 countries, which includes countries in Africa, through the Zakat Fund. We're hoping this year, while it's more challenging with the COVID-19, to serve more people through our faith-based philanthropy programs, and specifically through the Islamic Philanthropy Program. UNHCR serves more than 70 million people across the globe. More than 20 million of them are refugees and displaced people, and which is a huge population that we are responsible for. And we really hope that with community support all across the world, that we can serve refugees better and better this year, of course with hosting communities, and that we work very closely with, whether in South Africa, whether across the globe, in situations like this, situations where you have a lot of countries as well, hosting refugees, and the health systems are being challenged, specifically now. So it's more important than ever to be generous, and not only to of course to serve communities around us and our neighbors, but as well global needs and communities who are in need across the globe.
Houssam, if I can just come in there now, you spoke specifically about the spotlight that this report has put on faith-based giving. Now, just yesterday, we heard a special message recorded by President Cyril Ramaphosa in his capacity as chair of the African Union, wishing Muslims across the continent well for the month of Ramadan. And during this difficult time, as so many countries battle COVID-19, he said it is especially now that we need those of the Islamic faith to focus on the tradition of giving, especially during this time. Now, your research shows 7 of the 10 countries where people are most likely to help a stranger is located in Africa. How much of that is around faith-based giving, and how much is just about how various African cultures go about their interaction with other human beings?
I think we need to remember here that even faith-based giving is a cultural giving, and this is how I personally perceive it. And I think people, anyway, they think out of humanity when they give, and the motive always is, supporting others, whether it's on a platform of faith-based or otherwise. So the generosity of African countries and African communities is remarkable, even though there are a lot of challenges internally in Africa and maybe in South Africa. But what we're seeing more and more is tendency for people to think more global, even though they might give through a Zakat platform or Islamic Philanthropy platform or other religious platforms. But the global perspective is becoming more and more obvious. And I think this challenge today of COVID-19 is bringing us more and more together. We're seeing a lot of empathy and support and getting together of communities across the globe. So it's not about only religious motivation, but I believe it's more and more about global empathy, and people are willing to help their human, brothers and sisters in humanity. In Ramadan is another opportunity for us. It's a whole month where we can support. In our case, we're calling for, the call to action is really to support refugees who are the most vulnerable. The numbers are huge, the needs are huge, to support UNHCR, to support the communities who are sometimes, as I said, in camps or outside the camps. But most importantly, to make sure that we are ready with our partners on the ground if there's an outbreak in refugees communities, to support them, which is, thanks God, it's not the situation yet, but there are no guarantees that this will not happen.
Well, we can certainly hope that that is how it stays. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Such a fascinating topic, looking at how people give and why they give. Thank you so much for your time. Houssam Chahine is with the UNHCR. He's the Chief of Private Sector Partnerships for the Middle East and North African region, joining us out of Dubai. We thank him for his time and his insight this morning.